A very brief introduction to user interface design. The correct technologies to choose are the popular open source ones, the ones that are receiving the most development and attention. Please look to the web for exciting popular open source technologies and brilliant code generators, frameworks, and libraries. When you compare the HTML, JavaScript, and CSS ecosystems to what's currently on smartphones, you will see that the browser is the only good thing that's on there. For those arguing this point, the massive amount of advertising embedded in closed libraries that are headed your way will soon change your, and most importantly, your users' minds. At the moment, the best open HTML framework is Bootstrap, but in part because it does not abstract HTML and CSS from you. It instead exposes you to it, helping you learn the best ideas in both the world of HTML markup and the CSS decoration approach. If you are ever confused by this whole idea of HTML and CSS, know that HTML is just about a tree of nested objects. Standard objects from the programming world. And as this tree is displayed on the screen, it yearns for information about its decoration. And that's CSS. All the colors and borders and fonts, they sit out in the world of CSS, and these object nodes pull that information out from CSS. This way, HTML can be structure-oriented, where CSS can manage the decoration, the graphical aspect of user interface and document display in the browser. In a way, CSS is like a configuration file for HTML. It's all very simple. It only sounds complicated. It has to be simple for it to work across decades into the future. In short, Bootstrap makes it easy to create web layouts, drop-down menus, and other user interface components, including text styles, as it provides you with a pre-built library. Bootstrap's JavaScript is currently pretty much optional, and their documentation makes it so that all of their JavaScript can be easily replaced with Svelte. Svelte is the best, though still very primitive, technology that automatically updates a menu whenever your programming data changes, for example. So when a user is looking at, for example, their profile, and they may be waiting for their profile to be updated by an administrator, or maybe upgraded because they paid for some premium feature in your program. When that piece of information arrives into the browser, you don't have to worry about updating what's on the screen. Svelte makes it so that the moment the data object in your program, one of the fundamental fragments of your program, basically objects are just fancy variables that hold text or username information. Whenever that changes, the user interface will automatically update without you needing to program a checker for synchronizing the data that has arrived to the user interface. You don't have to program the user interface updates. You just need to make sure that the data flow in your program is in agreement with the Svelte way of programming. The reason Svelte is primitive is because it looks at your left-hand assignment. So when you say A or username equals Alice, it looks at the word username and says, oh yes, I see what's going on. You're updating the username to this new thing, so I'm gonna upgrade the screen for you. But if you say X equals user and then say X equals Alice, then Svelte will not be able to figure out that switcheroo that you have created. In part because creating all this stuff is confusing and it requires extra work and it requires extra computation that all can be avoided if you just tell yourself Svelte monitors data by looking at the left-hand side of your assignment. So just keep it simple and the data will automatically change on the screen. The thing that's really special about Svelte, or the other thing that's special about Svelte, is that it helps you extend HTML with your own much more advanced version. For example, you can make the very primitive HTML video player better, or you can create a new menu selection system, because Svelte allows you to create web components. Web components are the technology that extends HTML tags. And Svelte does not need to be embedded inside your web component, because Svelte is not a library that you package with your code when you make use of it, but rather a code generator. So it will generate all the confusing web component code and get out of your way. There's no library that you have to bundle when you use Svelte. Where HTML, CSS, and JavaScript lead the way, and are open technologies that are in fact worth learning, right above them, very clever and very experienced programmers created Bootstrap and Svelte. You still use HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, but a lot is done for you. There's one more component that is required for serious user interface design, and that is the little brilliant database called PouchDB. Entirely programmed in JavaScript, it is full of brilliant ideas and a beautiful approach to database design. By learning how Pouch works, you will become able to design your own version of it. PouchDB is actually a JavaScript version of CouchDB, which is written in Erlang. PouchDB works with your data in the browser, and then has the ability, is compatible with CouchDB, which then efficiently transports that data around networks and other browsers, other users that are connected to your network or application. Pouch allows you to make applications that can scale by relying on the much sturdier CouchDB. and you can scale to a very large number of users. PouchDB fits nicely beneath Svelte. It actually pushes that still primitive Svelte technology forward. It gives you a new kind of object and a new kind of data flow, where when you update a form on your screen, for example, user profile, and Alice, for example, adds her middle name, which I can't think of right now, and clicks save, you then have PouchDB to save that data to. You say, hey, okay, this is the version I'm working with, the version of the object I'm working with, and here's the new information about the user, and Pouch will be like, oh yeah, I can accept this because I can see that this is the latest version, I get the idea, everything's worked out, everything's taken care of. I will save it in the browser, and then PouchDB is gonna respond and your user interface will be nicely synchronized with the database. And then PouchDB will send that information into the network where your future company will be hosting your applications. Since PouchDB speaks the CouchDB protocol, your browser just sends the data into your network where it can be correctly stored, where it can scale to a large number of users and a large number of servers. There's a protocol for synchronizing multiple computers where they reach eventual consistency, and really all the great confusing details, the nitty-gritty stuff beneath web applications are kind of taken care of for you. You don't have to do anything crazy to expand your application, to scale it to a large number of users. Therefore, a good technology stack is one that will both be around for a long while and teach you brilliant techniques that will stay with you for many decades. Use Svelte, which will help you synchronize the user interface with the data inside your program. Bootstrap, which will give you well thought out pre-made HTML-based user interface components neatly styled with CSS. And PouchDB, that in conjunction with CouchDB, its bigger sister, will help you grow and scale without too much worry. Finally, a clever user interface programming challenge for you. Use Svelte and Bootstrap to recreate the big sister's CouchDB Futon user interface for the little PouchDB. So here you already have the workflow, the look of the user interface all mapped out in the Futon application that ships with CouchDB. So you take it all in, you reimagine it, you see what you can improve. And then redesign it for PouchDB so that you have this cool little useful application that you created on your own that actually helps you learn how to use PouchDB, learn how to work with Bootstrap, learn how to work with Svelte. Overall, this little challenge will help you set a nice aim to look towards to and help you grow familiar with all these little brilliant technologies.